Paul, welcome to Millionaire University. So delighted to have you here today and cannot wait to share your story. You are a longtime entrepreneur and you're going to have tons of value to offer to our listeners. So thanks for joining me.
Well, you flatter me. Thank you. I hope this is not an hour of your audience's light that they will not get back ever, but yet they will contribute to something that might benefit everybody.
Of course, I know that it will already. Just in a little bit, I've gotten to know you. So if anybody's watching the video, right behind you is it looks like this beautiful landscape out a gorgeous window. And it is so stunning and so realistic that it really did take me a second to say, oh, wait a minute, this is literally what you do for your business. So share right now what you do, and then maybe take us back through time a little bit to share the journey of how you got to what you're doing and some of your own entrepreneurial steps that have gotten you to this business.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Kirsten, for not only inviting me, but also for recognizing the print behind me. My office staff, I'd given them all windows in their offices, but they weren't very nice to me, so I have to wall creep one. But that is an example of what we do here. And I've had many businesses, and some of the attributes of this business is based on everything I've learned along my journey. I'm 73 years old, so I've had quite a bit of experience, some successes, some learning experiences, which is what I like to call something that might not be a financial success, but you learn from everything. And the important thing is to capture where you've been, what you've done, who you've had a relationship with, and then let that benefit you in your next step of your journey, whatever that might be. Whether you're working for somebody, whether you're an entrepreneur, you can always learn every single day. And you hope that if entrepreneurship is something that is in your sights, or it's something in your capabilities, and there's a fit, hopefully some of what we talk about today might lead you one way or the other. If you want to start early on, we can certainly do that. But, my current business, which you recognize already, just to put that in framework, 6 years ago, I discovered a technology was introduced to me. My background in a nutshell is that I've taken over the years, several decades, I've taken foreign companies' products and launched them in the United States. Because the hats that I wear best, that I've learned over the years, even though I worn every hat when I was in the restaurant business, I washed dishes and I tended bar and I cooked. In other businesses, I pretty much do everything. I think that anybody who's going to be in a business or thinking about a business should try to immerse themselves, either working for somebody in that business or making sure you know how to do everything before you have expectations from other people. Other people will have better skills than you. And if somebody told me a long time ago when I asked, what makes up a good CEO? What makes up a good president of a company? And they told me something that sticks with me very much to this day, is that a good CEO is somebody who is smart enough to hire the right people for the jobs that are needed, but wise enough to back off and let them do it. And it's important to realize that you're only one person. Any venture that you're going to get into is going to require multiple hats, and hopefully you will figure out which ones you do best, which ones you enjoy, which ones benefit the business, your customers, your partners, whatever. But for me, decades ago, I fell into working for a Russian company, a technology company, helping them license their software here in the United States. And again, we don't have so much time to go through my 73 years, so I'll just cut to the fact that that was an experience. That was a wonderful experience. I won't get into current politics at all, but people generally, whether they're American, Russian, Canadian, Chinese, people generally are really good and really good to each other given the chance. And so I had a wonderful 12-year relationship with this Russian technology company that developed audio and video solutions, similar to what we're doing today with this video call. If anybody has heard of Skype, the technology that's in Skype was from this Russian company that I licensed to Microsoft. Anybody who's got a Samsung telephone who tracks where you are with the navigation system inside, that software that I licensed to Samsung. And it goes on and on. Apple's music, their MP3 technology that's inside the chips in every Apple device, that's technology I licensed to Apple. So with all that said, I did very well for them and for myself in this journey. And it lasted, as I said, 12 years, but it got to the point where I pretty much did everything I could do for the company, and it was time for me to move on. And so, but in that course, that was my first experience taking a product from a foreign company and helping them identify, communicate, and market to an American audience. And so that's what I felt very comfortable doing, because my Russian company partners, whatever you want to call them, they did not have that success because of the language barrier and the cultural barriers. And that's why they solicited my assistance. And so after that, there was an Israeli company with a media board. There was a baby bottle manufacturer in Austria that was introducing a very innovative baby bottle for mothers. You also help fathers. But then there was a Chinese headband headphone for kids to wear to help them relax, and good for autistic children as well. Then there was a self-service dog wash from Australia. And again, the common thread to all these things is that it's something that either they found me or I found it by searching and seeing something innovative that I said, wow, that's really cool. I've never seen anything like that before. Who would benefit by this? Which is the first thing. Any business or any business owner or any entrepreneur, you may have great ideas. Everybody has ideas, some good, some not so good. But the first question you must ask yourself is, am I solving a problem? Is there a need for this? Is somebody else doing it? You have to do your homework. You have to do your research. You have to take your creativity that resonated with you to say, hey, that's really cool. I'd like to build a business. I'd like to build a product. I'd like to sell this. I'd like to work for a company that does this. Whatever it is, make sure that it's solving a problem. And so what that is, and that was a common thread for everything I just quickly ran through to you, is that it was something very cool, very innovative. I thought that there was an audience for it. And I got involved. Most of those experiences were done as a commissioned salesperson. I was very confident early on in my career in the sales area. And so I worked pretty much as an independent contractor, working for commissions most of my life. But, some of those situations, like the door wash and the headphone company, I found opportunities where I could be an equity owner and actually invested or buy into the product if I really liked it. Generally, if I didn't like it, I probably wouldn't work for them. But if I didn't like it, I wanted my performance to generate the financial benefit that would come from a positive experience. Second life list. When I was very early in my career in my 20s, so yes, like I said, I was 73, so I've gone back quite a bit. But when I was in my 20s, I had a very good job with a jewelry manufacturer, and I was the salesperson. I did very well. My mother happened to be the bookkeeper for this company. And at Christmas time, I was given a bonus of $1,000, which in my 20s, 50 years ago, that was big money. And I was getting paid a very nice salary to boot. But my mother, who was a bookkeeper, said, well, Paul, that was very generous of the owners to give you that bonus at Christmas time. But just so you know, because of your efforts as a salesperson here and the business you brought into the company, they each wrote themselves checks for about $50,000 each. So I said, wow, because I knew nothing about business. No, I knew nothing about the finances of that business. Or when I sold something, what really happened with that money. I didn't know about the cost of goods. I didn't know about the fact that they have to pay rent or anything like that for the building. None of these things were even in my mind. It was just that I was a good salesperson and I was making money, and I was making money for the company. So I went to the boss the next Monday of work, and I said, thank you very much. I really appreciated the bonus that you gave me. I said, but I think I should get a raise this coming year. And so he said to me, what I'm going to share with you and your audience now, and it resonates to me today with every employee I've ever had and hundreds over the years. When somebody feels that way, he said to me, Paul, you are a great salesman. You're doing a lot for this company. I will always make sure that you're paid more than anybody else will pay you. However, you will never make what you think you're worth unless you own your own business. I thought about that for a minute, and I quit. And I quit the job because one of his competitors had already been soliciting me to come work for them and allow me the opportunity to have an equity stake in the business and actually be a partner. And so where my efforts in sales would directly correlate to the revenue the company had and to the money I would make. And I decided to go that route. And ever since then, with every other thing I've done, it's basically been, if I had employees, I made sure that that was the case, that I paid them very well, but I also respected what they wanted to do with their lives. And if this wasn't what they wanted, if they felt that they could own their own business or they wanted to do something else, generally, I always supported that. And I haven't burnt any relationships that I think of as a result of that. Not every relationship is a positive one, but hopefully not for reasons that are just described in terms of compensation. Which actually, I'll say that's the next life list, relationships. That's what it's all about. I still engage every month. I have a monthly Zoom call there are 8 couples that have been friends since grade school. One that I was literally, since I was born, his parents and my parents were friends for 73 years. With the same age. We talk every day. We talk every day for pretty much most of the 73 years. And that's a relationship that then other people from my grade school years to my college years, there's 8 couples now that have stayed very close, that get together every few years, but talk regularly. Every month we have a Zoom call. And so I mention this only because relationships are everything. They will benefit you in your personal life. It will benefit you in your professional life. Even if it's not a good relationship, still, as I said earlier, you'll learn from everything. And so I had partners that had other motivations for being in a business with me, and the relationship did not work out. That's okay. I may have suffered financially or emotionally as a result of that, but I've learned something from it. And it's all about basically relationships. There's the old saying, be kind to the people on the way up. They're the same people you're going to see on the way down. Every journey is going to have its ups and downs. But if you can sleep at night and say that, you treated everybody fairly, 9 times out of 10 or more, you will be treated fairly in turn. And so these people, as I said, ultimately are all on the same page with wanting to benefit themselves and the people that they work with and the people that are in their lives. So that's, one of the biggest things I think about anything, generic to any business, is the relationship you form, whether it's with your workers, whether it's with your bosses, whether it's with your vendors, your strategic partnerships you develop, whatever it is, those relationships will ultimately benefit you one way or the other. If not financially, hopefully you define what it is you like to do so that you can move on in an area that is your journey. I'll take the break first, and I'll let you ask me anything you'd like.
I love that. Thank you so much for setting the stage and setting the foundation for that. So I'm so intrigued, and I love hearing that the foundation really started in sales and then has been able to transition to more, and finding that that genius zone, that equity split opportunity. And I love that you had that boss that was so upfront with you to be able to say, if you want to make the real money, if you want to make what we're making, this is what you're going to have to do, and that you've gone and opened those doors for other people. So I want to hear more about, even specifically, like you said, you've really been a great liaison between these foreign companies who have great innovative products. And so how did that lead into what you're doing now with the wall printer? I'm assuming it was the same scenario. You discovered that this was a product that was being created in another country and that it had really huge value to bring over to the States. So did you build this company the same way? Because you were acting more kind of in a sales capacity, and now this feels, is it slightly different, this business ownership for you?
So early on, as I mentioned, I was in the restaurant business. I had sporting goods stores right out of college. I was a tennis player, still am. But I opened up a tennis shop in my college community because I didn't have one. And there was no sporting goods store then in that town where I was, New Paltz, New York, a small town upstate New York. And so that was my first entrepreneurial venture. And after that, after 3 years, that's when I kind of learned that there were things I didn't know. And so I started working for people. And there was this kind of back and forth throughout the next 30 years or so, where I would work for somebody, I would find something that I really wanted to do. I went through the process, which I'll explain in a moment to answer your question, and then address that of how I got to what I'm doing today. But it's this back and forth between working for somebody, learning what I didn't know, figuring out, did I like this? Did I not like that? Would I incorporate that into something if I was doing it? And that went on for a good 20, 30 years until I got to the journey that I described earlier, where I started representing other companies. The last company I had before this was this self-service dog wash from Australia. It was something, my wife and I were not fortunate enough to have children of the true-legged variety, so we went the puppy route. And so they are our children, and we love them and spend probably as much money on them that parents spend on their children. I won't say that it's the same, but between health and food and everything else. I know that it's an expensive proposition to take responsibility of a child, no matter how, whether it's a canine or a human. And so here we are with dogs. I was retired at the time. This was about 10 years ago. And I surf the net all the time. I look for things, want to see what other people are doing, what I like doing. And I'll mention right now about that. This is not an advertisement for LinkedIn, but your audience, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a student, whether you're a professional and an experienced business person, get onto LinkedIn. Again, not an advertisement for it, but it's a social network for business people where you can find other like-minded people doing what either you want to do or what you want to learn about doing. And you can communicate with them. And, it's not like Facebook is a social thing. It is a social networking thing, but it's really targeted for business. And so that ultimately feeds into the relationships that I described earlier. It's a good way to create relationships. So anyway, I was retired at the time. I was looking at the things that I liked. I was searching for everything dog related. And I found this product that was a self-service dog wash. Similar to most of your audience might recall, if that didn't resonate with you, the old car washes where you drove your car into a bay and you squirted it with water with a wand. You sprayed it with water, the soap came out, then wax came out, and then you dried similar to what a regular automated car wash does today, but you did it yourself. It was a do-it-yourself car wash. So that concept was taken to product development by this Australian company that created this machine that basically a dog walked into it, stood on a platform. It had a wand that sprayed out water and then a nice shampoo and conditioner, a flea and tick repellent, and then rinse the dog off and then dry it off with a very high-powered drying. Very similar, again, to everything that any groomer would do for $100, which is what, sadly, I pay for my dog every week. But at the same time, you did this by yourself, $10 for 10 minutes. So this was a wonderful experience, I thought. And so I found it interesting. I reached out to the Australian company and I said, I've never seen anything like this. That has to be the first reaction I have for something. I've never seen anything like this. Are you in the United States somewhere? I'd like to try one of these out with my dogs. They said, no, we're just in Europe, a little bit in Asia, and mostly in Australia and New Zealand. We haven't really wanted to go to the United States because it's a big machine that weighs 800 pounds. You can only put so many of them in a container to go across the ocean. All very expensive, and no, we never wanted to do that. So we're very happy with our business here. I said, well, I might be interested. So we talked a little bit, and then fast forward to the point that I ended up becoming their distributor for the entire United States. And I started importing these machines. I built up selling it to communities, for their dog parks, pet stores, gas stations where people go with their dogs to wash their car. They could wash their dog too. So those are the kind of markets that I identified that would be suitable for this. Again, something else you have to, as I mentioned earlier, problems, solutions. You got to figure out also where will this product fit. To me, it fit in those kinds of places where people go with their dogs. The beach is another good one. And so I started doing this. I did this again as a commission salesperson. I did very well, but I said to them, I said, look, you were right at the beginning. This machine is very big and very heavy. It's 8 feet wide, 5 feet tall, weighs several hundred pounds. And I said, you can't really be successful. I can't be successful and like sell into a place like Petco that has 1,000 pet stores. I can't do that, bringing these in 7, 14, 20 at a time. You have to manufacture these things here. So they said, okay, Paul, why don't you find us a manufacturing place in the United States? Which again, things that I do. Although if there's a problem, I'll try to find a solution. So this solution was of finding a manufacturer. I found a manufacturer. They loved the product so much that they ended up buying the company. And they already had a sales force and everything else, and they didn't need me anymore once I introduced the product to them. So basically, I put myself out of a job when they bought the company. Now, I'm not crying. I had a very good contract with this company. So financially, I did very well. But what the takeaway from that was, if I'm ever going to do anything again, because as I said, I was kind of retired before I did this, if I was ever going to do anything again, I'm going to do it as an owner. I'm not going to be a commission salesperson anymore. Because if I see at this point in my life, I was in my 60s at the time, if I'm going to jump into something, I'm going to do it. Full blast, 100%, all in, but I'm going to benefit by the rewards. Back to my first job in my 20s, you're never going to take care of yourself because you think you deserve unless you own the company and are willing to take the risks. So keep that in mind. With risks goes rewards, but with risk also goes those learning experiences I described, where there might not be such a financial success. Again, taking all that into account, after the door wash business was sold to the manufacturer, I was once again surfing the internet looking for things. So now my long-winded way, Kirsten, getting back to your question. So there I am, and I found this product that was a wall printing machine. It was like an inkjet printer on steroids. It was a big machine. It weighed about 125 pounds, and it stood on the floor. A print head went up and down a rail, and it printed artwork onto the wall. And so that looked really cool to me because, and again, my mind started working. I said, there are very few ways to put artwork on walls. A muralist could paint it. That's an artist. They could paint a wall with a mural. You could put a vinyl sticker up that gets printed with what's called a flat plate printer in a print shop or signage shop. You can get wallpaper and put that on a wall, or you can hang a picture. Those are basically the full ways to put artwork on walls. And so I said, well, there might be a market for this. So I called to my wife, who I usually do. She's in another part of my house. And I said, Noreen, come on, take a look at this. Well, rather than come and take a look at this, like I asked her, she immediately cuts up my credit cards and changes the passwords on my bank account. Because she goes, here we go, Paul's going to invest in something nuts again. And so, but she did take a look after a lot of coaxing, and she looked at it and she said, boy, that's really cool. I've never seen anything like that. Again, the words I need to hear. And she said, you think you can do something with this? I said, yeah, I do. She says, well, go for it. So I waited for it. I wanted to find out who did this. Well, I was approached, the way I actually learned about this, I think I said it was a lie. I said I surfed the net and found this. That's not true. Because of my reputation as taking foreign companies' products and launching them in the United States, a German company reached out to me. It was a company that has a competitive product to what I have built now. But it was, once again, as I say, coolest thing I'd ever seen. They asked me to be a salesperson for them and launch this in the United States. They were in Germany. They did have a distributor that they just brought on in Canada, but they wanted to come to the United States. That's where the money is, and or was. And so, anyways, I won't get involved with politics in this call. But anyway, the opportunity I saw was there, and I said, yeah, that's pretty cool. We had a couple of Zoom calls back and forth to kind of get to know one another. Ultimately, I said, okay, I really like this product. I think I could do something with it. How much do you want for your company? And so they said, no, Paul, we're not looking to sell the company. We want a salesperson. And I said, well, I don't do that anymore. I need an equity stake. Could I own the entire rights to the United States? They said, no, we just want a commission salesperson. I said, well, okay, thank you very much. And that ended the conversation. I walked away from it, which is also another lesson. If the fit isn't right, if you don't think it's the best thing for you, don't be afraid to walk away. You'll do better by doing that and sticking to what you thought, even whether it's right or wrong, what you thought was best for you, rather than just going down a road that may not have a very happy ending, or may not be easy to get out. So I stopped the conversation, but I did say, never saw anything like this before. Why not? I started doing my homework. I found out that there were only 4 other companies in the world that did this type of technology. There were 2 in China, 1 in Australia, 1 in India. So I reached out to all of them, tried to learn about these products. I found out that the originator of the technology, which preceded the German company by about 7 years, the German company actually copied that technology from a Chinese company. And they've been in business 14 years, primarily in Asia, a little bit in Europe, a little bit in the Middle East. And they had about 500 customers at the time. This is, I'm talking 2019 now, 6 years ago. And so that was a company that seemed to be very stable. They were the originator of technology, but I looked at all the other ones. The second Chinese company, the Chinese don't only copy us when they see something cool, they copy themselves too. So, but it was a laser engraving company. They didn't have any expertise. They couldn't develop the product any more than what it was, which is something that's a deal breaker for me, because if I see something, I know the way my mind works, I'm going to find some improvements in it. I'm going to, or at least hire people who will find that are smarter than me, that will find some way to improve the product over time. So that company could not do that. It was an Australian company, as I mentioned. They had a very pretty website. It was a venture-backed company. That is, for the audience that doesn't know, somebody else who's investing, who's looking to make money on with your ideas. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. In this case, they didn't have any product yet. And in fact, during the time that I was exploring them, the venture company backed out, so they had no money and they couldn't do anything. And then the last one was an Indian company, which had a very cheap, lightweight home hobby solution that wasn't suitable for what I wanted, which was to put people in business using these machines. That's what my vision, my goal for this product was. I didn't want to start painting walls myself with this machine. I wanted other entrepreneurs who saw this as something really cool, or a business that, like a painting business or general contractors, people that I thought would know what people wanted and develop relationships with people. Now they have something else to sell those people. When you go into a house, you paint all the walls and show white, but you learn that there's a child there that's into Disney products. There's another one that's into sports. Parents really like a beach scene. They like tropical scenes or something like that. You learn about the people. And now with this, they'd have something else to sell them and add revenue. So these were all the things that were going through my mind that would be what I would do with this company. So I went back to the first Chinese company. We started having our courtship back and forth for a year. I have a company that works for me over the years because I don't like traveling too much. I live in a beach community here, Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm very happy here. I don't travel much, except when I go back to visit family and friends in New York once a year. So I don't travel. And so I have a company that works for me. I contract them to go and check out other companies, these foreign companies. So they went to China, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody who was working out of their garage, but it's somebody who could deliver 50 of these machines a month or whatever I thought I could do with this machine. I wanted to make sure they had the ability to improve on the machine if they had good engineering, and ultimately they also would be willing to work with an American company. And so they checked all the right boxes. My company came back to me. They said, yes, it got 75 employees. At the time, it was about 50. Now it's up to close to 100. They grew to 75 just in the time that I started doing business with them. And so it was a substantial company with the ability to do what I wanted them to do. We created an agreement between it. I own all rights to the Western Hemisphere. That's what I wanted. I wanted North America, South America, the Caribbean. I wanted actually all English-speaking countries too. The UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, any English-speaking country, and the entire Western Hemisphere, with its Spanish in South America, with its Portuguese in Brazil, and French, Canadian, and Quebec. I wanted all of that. And they were willing to do that. There was a cost involved. We don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of that. But nevertheless, I'm an owner of this, and I have a stake within the factory itself. And in fact, since I came on board, because I react to what the customers want, people wanted to have personalized parking spaces in garages, and they wanted which would be something that a floor creeper could do, not a wall creeper. And so we developed, and I'm co-patent holder, which again speaks to the relationship that I have with this Chinese company. It is very unusual for an American company to be a co-patent holder with a Chinese company. But I am a co-patent holder for this floor creeper that we created. And I've been involved in many iterations of the product in the 5 years that I've been selling. Fast forward to today, we have over 300 customers throughout the U.S., mostly 85% are in the U.S., about 7 or 8% are in Canada, and the rest is spread out from South America to a little bit overseas. And so that's where we are today, and we're putting people in business. My company was awarded in 2023 the Coastal Entrepreneurial Year Award, and the reason that it was That award is given to one company each year in the Southeast U.S., and where the judges are asked a question, what would you invest $100,000 in? And the reason they picked my company, beyond the investment, they like the fact that investment in my company created a business opportunity for somebody else. So every time somebody buys one of my machines, which costs about $40,000, just to put that in perspective, it's not your $100 desktop printer. It's a $40,000 commercial printing machine. And when they buy that, you're in business, and you are going to, have to do everything else the business does. We're not a franchise. I didn't want to be a franchise. I have some experience with that. Again, that would be a conversation for another time. But I did not want this to be a franchise. I didn't want to obligate my customers, and I didn't want to reach into their pockets for revenue, which is what a franchise or will do with a franchisee, the one who buys that product. I didn't want to go out and be like McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. I wanted to be the machines. I wanted to take care of the machines, make sure they were the best possible. I wanted to create the support, all the training materials, provide the training, provide all the parts. We manufacture all needs here in the United States that these machines have, so they're reliable and they will work day in and day out for our customers. But the business is theirs. So they have to know how to market. They have to go and buy insurance if they need it. They have to buy a vehicle to move the machine. There are other things we can guide them on, but we don't have anything to do with the business. We don't tell them you must sell to residential customers or restaurants or hotels or schools. These are all potential customers, but it's up to them to decide who do they want to market to, who do they want to service and support. And that's where we are today. It's a growing business. I just invested in a large building because we outgrew the space that we have now. We'll be moving in June into a new facility. So I'm very proud of the team that I built up. Have about 15, 20 employees. They all seem to be pretty happy. And they could tell you, hopefully that same thing, because I do pay them more than anybody else would pay them. But some of them have come and gone, and I've supported that because they learn what else they'd like to do with their lives. I do a lot of internships. I take people from the local university, which is UNCW, University of North Carolina in Wilmington, and also Cape Fear Community College, which is an excellent community college with a very big engineering department. And so I take interns from those schools every semester. And some of those people have come on to be full-time employees of mine, or have actually bought a machine and gone into business because they liked it after they graduated. So that's basically called Baron in a nutshell or war.
I love it. I have so many questions, and I know you mentioned you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty with what it costs to be able to own the whole entire Western Hemisphere. But I know our listeners love to hear some of the nitty-gritty, so you don't have to get into whatever specifics you're comfortable with. But if somebody's looking into this and saying, okay, there's opportunities here where I can partner with companies, I don't have to just be a sales rep. I'm going to learn from Paul and his path and what he's done. When you're looking into something like that, are we talking a commission structure? Are we talking you had to buy in to become ownership of that entire hemisphere? What does that look like? Where do you even begin?
So it's a two-part business proposition, at least in my case. One is just to own that territory for them not to engage with other people. It needs two things. It needs an agreement that supports that legally, and it needs an investment. Not only the investment that the company who is the manufacturer and owner of the technology might want to give up that territory over to somebody else like me or to some other business or distributor or whatever you want to call me. But so that has a value associated with it. Now it's up to you, the entrepreneur, to negotiate the best deal you can do. I like to think I negotiated a very good deal, but there's a cost associated with that. And that depends on the product. It depends on the opportunity. It depends. The company typically will tell you, this is what I think it's worth. And you go back and forth and, you try to come up with, a compromise settlement that, number one, you can afford. Number two, you've done your homework. You've done the projections. You've decided, if I can sell to this number of people, this many printing machines, this is what I will earn. This is what it will cost me. What are my costs? The cost of having a business, of creating the same cost my customers should think about. We have to have people who learn how to use the machines. We have to have people who learn how to sell to people who are going to want wall art in their restaurant, hotel, home, whatever. We have to have somebody who's going to do that service and support. So all the tools for that, I had to put in the people. Now, I'll backtrack 5 years. I may not have been the smartest kid on the block when I invested a lot in this business. And of course, I just absolutely loved the technology and saw the opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, very few ways to put a heart on the wall. I thought this was something really had potential. But my relationship with the manufacturer began in December of 2019. I received my first shipment of machines in January of 2020. Most of your audience will know that's when COVID started. In January of 2020, the world stopped in terms of now here I was with literally hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in machinery and a business that nobody could travel to see. Trade shows stopped, so there was no way to use industry events or go to people's homes or restaurants to demonstrate the equipment. All of that was gone. And here I was with a product that required all of that, or so I thought. But I was committed, not only financially, but I didn't want my wife to reject or to regret not having cut up my credit cards. But what I did was, where everybody was laying people off during those early COVID times, and people started working remotely or losing their jobs, I decided to invest in the people that were needed to do my vision, the people who would learn how to use the machines, the people who would create the marketing materials, to tell people what this is all about, to develop the marketing plan, people who were experienced in social media, because that was a way to communicate this to people using Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, because you could broadcast videos and show people these machines printed, which would communicate the value of them, and get other people to think, what would I do with this machine if I had it, even if they couldn't come and see it at a moment in time. So it was 8 months, 8 to 10 months. It was about August, September of 2020 before we sold our first machine. This cost me a lot of money. Again, another reason why you must have the right resources to be able to withstand things that go well, things that might go wrong. You have to try to anticipate those things, but you won't anticipate everything. I certainly did anticipate COVID. But fortunately, I had the resources to withstand it. And when August, September came around, there we were now starting to sell. So 20 in our first year, so 40 in our next year. Now we're selling well over 100 a year, and putting people in business, as I mentioned, creating new businesses with every sale. But that process of is exactly what I went through to get to the position we're at today.
I love that. There's so much power in pivoting, and it's almost like, it makes me wonder if you've probably been able to have more sustainable success because of the fact that you had to find alternative sales and marketing routes, different than what you might have done with trade shows and things like that, where you opened the pool of access to way more people and started to create opportunities that if you had stayed just in the local or, smaller venue, you probably wouldn't have reached so many of the customers that you sell to today. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs might see that COVID or whatever might come up as just like, well, that's the end. That's it. This was the worst timing. I can't believe I've invested in this. This is awful. Instead of saying, you know what, we're going to double down on this. We're going to find a way to sell this and make it better. I love that so much. And I think we've kind of been able to gather from what you've said, what the business structure for you looks like. I love that you have chosen to sell this not as a franchise, but honestly just selling a product and then leaving it up to the people. In terms of your team, what does that comprise of? You said you hire and end up bringing on full-time from the students. Are we talking sales, marketing? Because are you actively selling, or you just have other people out there selling for you?
The first couple of years, I was very actively selling, and for reasons like I stated earlier, when I washed dishes and tended bar when I owned a restaurant, I wanted to know everything about it. I needed to hear from the customers, who does it resonate with? I needed to find out firsthand who wants to buy this, why do they want to buy it, how much will they spend to buy this? All of those questions needed to be answered to see if I had a business that would deliver what I intended. So yes, I was actively involved in that end. I learned how to use the machines during those 10 months when we first started, so that I would know something about them, even though I wasn't going to be the person who was going to be fixing that machine or training people on the machine. I still wanted to know enough about it to be dangerous. But to answer your question, we have a sales team, we have a marketing team, we have a technical support team. Basically, those are the three areas: technical support, marketing, and sales. My marketing team takes care of all the video production and the TikTok ads and Facebook ads, monitoring that, making sure that And not only do we have ad that resonate with people, but we're always testing to make sure what resonates better, what message should keep communicating, selling this business opportunity for people, selling the machines, their quality and reliability and the profit potential. So all of that goes into the marketing end of things. Our salespeople, they pretty much work on commission, just like I used to do early on, but some people do work on salary also. And then I got my technical support team, they will work on salary. Now, I will say something that I do differently than a lot of companies, certainly differently than every company I would ever work for until I started owning my own businesses, was I allow all my employees to participate in a revenue share. Now, what I mean by that is you'll hear a lot of stock options you get when you come into a business. You get options if the business does well. These will be worth a lot of money to you one day. All those promises, some that pay off, some that are just hopeful, some that never pay off. I believe that everybody should be rewarded when the business does well. And so every time we make a sale, a portion of that sale, that revenue, goes into everybody's pocket here. And so that's something that if the business succeeds, everybody succeeds financially, hopefully, as well as feel good about themselves. But that's one of the reasons why I've had very little employee turnover. I think that people are paid very well. I think they enjoy that. It makes them have an ownership stake without actually being an owner, but financially they're benefiting by the earnings of the company. And it doesn't require me as a business owner to constantly analyze, well, how much is really profit and my expenses and everything else, which is a very subjective figure in any business, because there are a lot of expenses that you can put into various buckets: sales, marketing, personal expenses, travel and entertainment, all the kinds of things. Insurance. There's all kinds of ways that a business spends money. But there really is only one way the business makes money. That is, who will pay you for what you're selling, whether that's a service or a product, a technology, food, whatever. What they pay you is what your business is worth. And so that's my business now.
I love that. It's so brilliant. It's been such a fun conversation just to have this layered in through your stories and through the context of what you've learned over the history of your journey as an entrepreneur, to understand the type of business that you've built and getting those little glimpses of why you've done the things you've done, why you've built the business the way you have, why you pay people the way that you do.
Well, tell me really, I have no idea why I do what I do.
I think because you've lived it, right? Like there's so much value in starting in sales and working your way up and just understanding the bigger picture.
Like I said, I'm an old man, and if you say something interesting and I don't jump right in, I'll forget it. But that goes back to the relationships. I was very lucky in my life, not only as I described earlier with having very long-term relationships, but having people who could tolerate me. I was always willing to take a risk, something that any entrepreneur must be willing to do. Take a risk. That might be a risk with you personally, with your time, with your money, with the idea itself, but you have to be taking a risk of some sort to really call yourself an entrepreneur. And so I was very fortunate. I had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. But I always had people with me that were there to support me, sometimes emotionally, sometimes financially. Those are the relationships that got me to where I am today. I definitely have not done it all myself. I may have some intellectual capacity. I may have some risk-taking tolerance that maybe some other people don't have. I may have had some financial resources at some point in my life. But there were times when I was trying to find pennies in the couch to put gas in my car, to go for a job interview. And there are times where I'm able to write six-figure checks. So, and everything in between. So it's, it's a journey, and you have to just be willing to take it. And you have to benefit by what you've learned before. But the relationships, I can't emphasize that enough. Whether you work for somebody, whether you start an entrepreneurial venture yourself, that's what's going to make your life fulfilling.
Yeah. Well said. Where is the best place for people to connect? I know that there might even be listeners who are thinking, this is a really cool, intriguing business model. I might want to look into getting a floor printer, getting a wall printer. Best place for them to go to learn more.
So I appreciate you inviting me to this, and I definitely do not make these sales pitches. But at the same time, I'm happy to connect with people. As I said, LinkedIn, good professional network. Anybody can find me on LinkedIn, Paul Barron, as long as you get the spelling, I just said the name right. And you can find that link and feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to have conversations. I'm happy to have people explore this. If they were serious about this and it resonated with them and they want to learn more about it or more about me, you certainly can find out by going to thewallcreator.com. That's my website, thewallcreator.com, all one word. And it'll take you about 15 seconds on our website to learn everything that my business does and what the machines do. You'll see one video in a TikTok ad or an Instagram post, and you'll see what these machines are capable of doing. Whether or not it's the right business for you or not, that remains to be discovered. But by all means, reach out to me on our website. You can always contact us through there and find out more about his technology and about the business opportunity. And then if you want to connect with me, by all means, go to LinkedIn and make a connection. And if you have something you want to communicate or something you want to chat about, we can go from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Paul, for all the value you've brought, for your story, for all of the insight you've given into entrepreneurship and business. It's been so fun to get to know you and share all of the goodness with our audience.
Thank you, Kirsten. And one of these days, we'll take some of those pictures off your wall and give you a wall print.
There you go. I'm open to that. That would be amazing. Thank you again.